Since I do have 1 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get started. Our next meeting will be April 20th, and I don't know who's on the list for giving a presentation that day. I was going to check that and got busy. We have some Microsoft Teams instructor-led classes going on. Next week we have a Geopack Road 2. Right now we have 15 registered. If you have anybody that wants to take it, we can increase the class size and allow them to sign up at mo.u. So send me an email or give me a call, whatever, and I'll get that taken care of. We have an intro to Bentley drainage class, April 6th through the 7th. There's 17 registered in that one, so they'll be busy with that. No other classes at this time do we have scheduled. So, and again, we have online classes that are available for Concept Station, intro to MoDOT hydrology and hydraulics, Power Geopack, Microstation fundamentals, and Power Geopack Road 1, and soon we'll have a Road 2. And these are all SS4.
Hey, Bill.
SS10. Yes, how can I help you?
Can you go back one slide? You're back to where you were with the class listing there. You had an intro to hydrology and hydraulics. You also have the MoDOT hydrology and hydraulics, not the intro one, but the second one is available as well. So it's more more intense, more exercises and stuff like that. That's also available. So
all right, sounds great.
So
thanks, Kevin. I'll update that right now. I like the way that turned out, but
perfect.
So how are we looking now? We looking good?
Looks awesome, Bill. Thanks.
All right. So that's the class that we have online. Today we have a couple different guest speakers. Chad's going to talk for maybe, he said he's going to try to get it done in 30 seconds or so. And then we'll have Shannon. Chad's going to talk about some border information. And Shannon's going to talk about some civil cells, culvert creation for SS10. So that's what you get to look forward to today. Chad, do you need your screen shared, or you just want to talk? Or
yeah, I can share my screen if you don't mind. It won't take about a couple minutes.
That's good. Let me pass it over to you.
Okay.
Should be able to share now.
Okay. Share content on screen number 2. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make everybody aware of our CAD standards. And basically our CAD standards here, it's underneath CAD standards and then our seed files. And then if you're in Bridge, of course, you'd use that one. Or if you're in Design, you would use this one. And we have all of our seed files underneath there depending on what you want to use it for. Now, the thing that I want to specify with our seed files is they're not to be used as a reference. Whenever you guys are using these seed files, they're meant to be copied to your project and then to be used, going forwards. And an example of that is like this file right here. This file right here gets updated, occasionally depending on what the engineering policy group adds or subtracts to that sheet. So whenever I get that information from the engineering policy group and they give me the updates, I take their new file that they have and I put it in this location and I delete the previous one. So if anybody reference this sheet right here in the CAD standards and I delete it, probably the next time you open it up, you're going to get some prompt that says, reference files have been moved or either deleted and whatnot, and you may lose all that information. So I just want to make everybody aware of that our CAD standards, for the most part, on all of our DGN files, and also we have a couple Excel files here for the coordinate point sheet, and also we have one for the D2BS quantity sheets, which the engineering policy groups keeps that updated also. Those are meant to be copied to your project and then worked with from there. Okay, so that's the only thing that I really want to mention with that. So if anybody's got any questions on it or whatnot, they can send me an email, but that's all I kind of want to show everybody that it's meant to be copied to your job and not to be referenced back to.
Point made. I like that. Thank you, Chad. Let
I
me
will
get it
stop.
to Shannon now.
I will
Yeah, we'll
stop
have
sharing.
one. Shannon, are you ready?
You bet.
There you are. You should be able to share now.
Okay. All right. So I'm sharing. Hopefully you can see that.
It's coming. It is there. I can see
Okay.
it.
So what my portion here is today is I'm going to play. I made a video of this. I actually have it also here in MicroStation. That's this file that I'm in here. But if you create a culvert or you have an existing culvert, one of the two that you want to show in your, say, your cross sections or in your 3D model, we have a civil cell that'll allow you to create a culvert in a given area, and it will go ahead and draw it in 3D. You're not limited to size necessarily because you can modify it and make it whatever size that you want when you're done. This one does really just a single line. If you were going to do it this way, it would have to be one solid slope. The other way that you could do it is you could do a culvert over maybe the part that has a standard slope, and then if the slope changes in your culvert, then you could place another one and basically drop the civil cells into just regular geometry once you're done to get rid of any of the flared end sections. So the flared end sections come with it with this particular one. If you didn't want those on the end of this, then you would drop the civil cell once you had it where you wanted it to go, and you could just remove them or delete them out. But this one, I'm going to go ahead and play the video on it, and it'll show you how to do it. If you like to do your culverts with HY8, then this could be a feasible thing to get these things to show up in your cross sections. If you like to use the SU program, it used to be called SUDA. I think Chad and Ethan have been working on that pretty hard, and the culverts are also in there, and you can, I think the ones from the EPG are available in there. And so if you use that program, it will draw in your 3D information for you as well. So this is if you're going to use HY8 or some other method to create a culvert and you want it to show up in your plans. So I'll go ahead and start that video now. Okay, so if we're going to try and place the culvert civil cell, first we're in a drawing here. This is I'm just doing this in the corridor file that I'm in. If you had several civil cells, you might want to create their own drawing, but you don't necessarily have to if all you're going to have is one. And so in this case, I'm just going to have the one civil cell, and I'm going to place it in this location right here. Now what this is going to allow us to do is if perhaps you designed your culvert in something like HY8, you would have to go in and draw in your culvert sections wherever they happen to be. And so what this will do is it'll draw a civil cell that bases it on a horizontal and vertical element, and then it will try and place that on there. And so what we're going to need to do is have a horizontal element in here, and then we're going to have to figure out what that profile is. And that profile will come from the beginning flow elevation to the end flow elevation, so whatever's in and whatever's out. And then you can place that profile in there and make it active, and then you can place the civil cell on top of that profile and horizontal element. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to go up and we're going to set our feature definition. Okay, so our feature definition is located here, and I'm going to go in here and set that to design standards, drainage, and then we've got culvert new. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that. If it's an existing culvert, then just pick culvert exist. Then I'm going to turn that on, make sure that that's active. I'm going to go over to the horizontal geometry under the tasks menu, and I'm just going to do a straight line. Now the only way you can do say a bent culvert, or if you have one that has the slopes different, is you'd have to place two civil cells, one for the first change in slope and then one for the second. So you'd have to have basically two of them in there. We're just going to place one just to show how it works. So we're doing a line between points, And we'll say our low point is somewhere around in here, and you can see in my 3D window where I have that located. So we're going to say that it runs this direction. Okay. If I look at that, see that I'm kind of snapped to this actual end condition, snap to the end condition. So if something changes on end conditions, slopes change or something like that, this line would also change for that. Okay, so I'm going to open up window number 8 and I'm going to take a look at the profile for this one. Okay, currently I have an existing ground out here, which is this purple line here. I have that active, so it displays my existing ground in here. I'm going to flatten that out just a little bit so we can work with it. Now when I did my HY8, I pretty much was going to hit existing ground, but I want to see where those slopes come in to this. I want to see those slopes. So what I'm going to do is a tool underneath of the vertical geometry, which is quick profile from surface. So in our 3D window, we have our end conditions. If I want to see those inside of my profile window, I can use this tool and select those. So I'll pick the quick profile from surface tool, and I already have the line selected. If I didn't have that selected, I'd have to choose it. And then in my 3D window, I can pick on these surfaces that are out here. Okay, once I pick on those, all I have to do is right click to reset, and it will go and draw those end conditions into my profile window. So I know that that's kind of where I want to be with my pipe culvert. So also in the vertical tools, I'm going to do just the regular profile line between points. Choose my profile window, and I'm going to go from that end condition that we placed out there to that end condition. Okay, so I'll hit F4. If we take a look at this one, it doesn't have a feature name, so I'm going to give it culvert flow line. All right, and then I'm going to set that as active. When I do that in my 3D window in the background, if I zoom in to this location, if I look kind of underneath, I see that line that runs through there. So that's the flow line of my culvert in this particular area. Okay. So once I've got that placed in there, now all I have to do is place the civil cell on my horizontal element. So underneath of the tasks, we've got civil cells. The second option in there is to place a civil cell. So I'll choose on that one. Now I've placed a box culvert the last time that I placed a civil cell, so it's up there for me. But the first time you do this, it probably won't be, or if you run the cleanup tool, it wouldn't be there. So we'll hit the little triple dots. And this is all of the civil cells that we have created so far. And the one that I want to look at is this box culvert. So I'm going to expand that out. And under there we have just the box culvert. Okay. Now when I look at this, I can see that I need two lines here. I need a red line that crosses the culvert, and then I need another line that is the culvert center line. Okay, so those are the two things I need to get this to work. So we'll say OK to that. And then it says which ones reference elements do you want to choose. I'm going to choose this white line as my line that runs through the culvert. You could choose even the one up here, I believe, but just something that crosses that culvert. So we'll select that. And then it wants to know the second element, which is going to be my culvert flow line, center line. So I'll select it. And it's going to go out there and draw in that culvert for me. Okay. Now I have the ability to switch this thing around, but it is already pretty much going the right way. You can click on this to get the flow correct. But this is going the correct way. And then once we do that, we can hit the right mouse button to reset. And then we can accept that civil cell. So we'll just left click to place it in there. Now in your 3D window, you should see it pop through. Okay. Now I have that coming through there. You see I switched that around, and what it did for me was it switched my clipping plane around. So I do not want that to happen. So I'm going to undo that, and we're going to try to place that again, only this time I'm not going to switch the direction. Okay. So I'm going to pick on this white line again, and then I'm going to pick on my culvert, and I'm going to take it as it's given to me there. So I'll right click for no alternatives, and then I'll left click to accept it. Now that should draw it out there for me correctly. Okay, so you can kind of see if you have it going the wrong directions over here, you could have clicked on it to switch the direction afterwards. Now what these are that come across, and this usually freaks people out when they use the culvert one, is this surface that it creates out here. This is a clipping surface that's built into the civil cell that clips this flared end section at 45 degrees. Okay, or whatever slope that you tell it, you can change that. But that'll draw that out there. Now when it draws it out there, it also draws it here in the 2D window. As you can see that's on I believe a default level. Let's see. Okay, so that's all part of that civil cell. So it'll even tell you complex element, and it's got a name, and it belongs to the box culvert, and it is a construction reference for that civil cell. Okay, and the level is modeling civil cell construction reference. So that's what you would turn off if you didn't want to see these in the 2D view, which we will do here in a little while. Okay, so I have this profile down here. If I modify that profile in any way, it's also going to modify the box culvert because it's tied directly to that. So that's one thing that can change. If you change the horizontal, it'll also change the horizontal on this because it is a civil cell, and so it always takes a look at the items that you have selected off the screen in order to get them to do that. Okay, and so we do have that culvert drawn in there now. So in our 3D window, I'm going to rotate that around a little bit, take a look at it. So you rotate it around and you can see there's a box culvert that runs through there at that location. Okay, so these things are just terrain models that it draws out there. If you let your mouse rest on them, you can see it's terrain model. Terrain is construction. And so what we can do is we can, if we don't want to see maybe all of it, we can go into the properties of it and we can turn off the triangles. Okay. So once that's done, then you can kind of see through it. But what it's doing is it's clipping that out right there. Okay. And the same thing on this particular one. We could do that. Turn that off. All right. So that will show that in there. And now we've got our flared end section and our culvert in there. All right. Now, if we want to take a look at changing or modifying this, I believe it comes across as a 6x6 box culvert. Okay, not all of our culverts are going to be that, so they give you the option in here to change this. So if I zoom in a little bit into my default window, if I hover over one of these, it'll say that's a complex element. It's a working box bottom one. So I don't want to change the bottom. I want to change the top. So I'm going to right click. And now I've got the working box top 2. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And in my element information, down towards the bottom down here, you can see that I have a vertical offset of 6. So that's where that 6-foot top comes in. I'm going to change this to a 3-foot culvert. So I'm just going to change that to 3 and enter that in. Okay, so that changes one inside height for that one. So we do the same thing to the other side. I've got the working box bot, so that'll be the bottom. I'll right click and get until I get the top one. Okay, once I get the top, I can pick on it and I can change that one to 3 and enter that in. Okay, so I've got those two in there. The outside one, there's a bottom one, there's the out one, and there's another top. Let's take a look at that top one. And all I'm doing is right clicking to go through those. Okay, so that vertical offset's 6.54, so there's your wall thickness on the top. I'm going to change that to 3.54. Enter that in, and you'll see over here in my 3D window it dropped that side down. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Right click until we get to the top, left click on it under element information. I'm going to change that to 3, and then you'll see that box drop. Okay, our flared in section is still out there, too high for us, so we want to change that. Okay, so let's change the one up here real quick. So we'll change this element. If we left click on it, that's the one that is controlling the top of it. We can go into our element information on this one, and you can see our offset 6.875. We're going to change that to 3.875, and that will lower down my box culvert flared in. And then you can see the other side's already down there at 3, but we need to change our flared in section here. So we'll go ahead and change that to 3, and it'll drop that down. Now there's other things that you can change in here if you wanted to. You could change the width of it. If you pick on that right now, it's a 6x6 box, so you could actually just come in here and change the width of it if you wanted to. So currently it's a 3x6 box. Okay. But there's all kinds of different ways that you can go and change what we see there. Okay. So that gets the box in there, and then the last thing we'll take a look at on editing this will be the cross-section view. Okay, so the cross-section view under corridor modeling, we've got that open cross-section view. So we'll left-click on that, and we're going to left-click on that center line, and then we get to tell it a left offset and a right offset. Okay, you could key those in if you want to, or you can just left-click, and then where you want to start this from. So I'll just start it here inside my box culvert somewhere, and then the interval, it'll go every 5 foot if you want, so we can accept that. And then it says open view. Which view do you want this to show up in? We'll have it show up in 8. So we'll left click in there, and then you can see your box culvert showing up at those different locations. So here it is, just slightly above your end condition, and as we go down through there, you'll start seeing some of the other options. So as it's going up like that, you can see that this is that slope line that's cutting it out. If we go the other way, you'll see that box culvert gets drawn in there at the elevation that it actually is along that center line. Okay. If we do it this direction, the other direction, so we'll go left and right, and we'll just start it in here. You'll see that that box culvert will show up even run in this direction. So the civil cells are items that will show up in your cross sections, and you can also do a profile or a cross section along the center line of that particular civil cell. So it works out pretty well. It's a pretty nice one. You can do all kinds of options with it. You can turn off different levels and so forth. So if you needed to do that, you could do that. You could turn off that 2D window in there if you wanted. And yeah, so that gets your culvert in there and in your cross sections. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. And then when you get it really put in where you want it to go, at some point you could completely drop it out of being a civil cell, which is an option inside of the civil cell tools. So if you looked in civil cells here, this last option there is to drop a civil cell. And what that does is it takes the civil cell and leaves it where it's at. It just kind of breaks all the rules from it. So it'll sit right there. So if you didn't want to make any changes to it any further, then you would be okay to drop the civil cell. But once you do that, it is pretty much just static in your drawing. But if you were to come out and drop that, as you can see it stays, but in your 3D view you could do things like delete that line out. You don't need it anymore. completely get rid of all those surfaces and stuff, because you wouldn't necessarily need them in your file if you're not using them for clipping or anything. So then it stays in there, and it will also still show up in cross sections and everything else. So, but at this point, since I dropped it, it would be static, or you could even delete it from over here. Would delete it from over there. So, kind of cool. This is what you would do if you had a broke back or you had a bent one. You could do it like I was saying, just 2 different civil cells. But then when you were done with it, drop it to get rid of the flared in sections. Then get rid of those shapes that come along with it after the fact. So, anybody have any questions on any of that? All right, Bill, I'll hand it back over to you then.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
There is one in the chat from Jeff Franks.
Oh, okay. See those.
Thank you, Chad.
Do I know how to see those? I don't think I know how to see those in here like this. There it is up at the top. Gonna break me, put it the culvert pipe. So you're gonna put a change in the slope after the culvert has been put in and created. Anything that, if you place this on a single line, it'll only do a single line profile, is all it will do. So if I were to draw that profile even with a vertex in it, it would ignore that and just go from the beginning to the end. Same thing would happen if I tried to add in a vertex or modify that profile. It'll just go from the beginning to the end, straight across. So that's the way that one's built. Anybody else? All right, I'll send it back to you, Bill.
Thank you. Okay, that's basically all we have for this month. Any questions over anything, or you got any concerns or anything you guys want to bring up or anything? Here's the numbers out here. I got to get Jennifer's number on here. I looked at this page and realized I didn't have her number, but I will get it out there so you guys can harass her or call her or whatever.
Do have a quick question, Bill, for Shannon.
Sure, Mike.
Where do you got that video hiding at, Shannon? I want to look at that again sometime when I'm messing around with another culvert.
I am going to put that out on YouTube today. It will also be in this recording, but I'm going to put just that video out, and I'll have it on our YouTube page. I can share a link out on the blog.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? If not, yeah, go ahead.
I was say if I get 100 likes, then I might do another one.
You mean more than the super elevation got?
Yes, I need 100 likes, not just 100 views.
Oh, I gotcha.
You can't rate it either, Shannon. So
that wouldn't be fair. Well, I guess we'll see you April 20th, guys and girls, or everybody. See you. Have a good rest of the month.
Thanks, Bill.
thanks, Bill.
You're welcome. I'm going to stop recording.